All right, we're live. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another Dexago LinkedIn Live. Today I'm here with Deidre, who is an expert in marketing and growth, and she'll talk to us all about the impact of Gen AI on marketing, how we can drive reach, and she'll also be present at the Dexagon AI Summit. She'll lead a roundtable there. So if you're interested in the topic and want to know more, we'll have the link below so you can register to join us end of April in New York City. So, hi, Deidre, how are you today?
Hi, I'm good. Thanks for having me today. And thanks for calling me an expert. Oh my gosh, I feel like I have so much to live up to right now.
you are. And I'd love for everyone to learn a bit more about your background too. So, would you like to give a short intro?
Sure. I am a B2B marketer. I specialize in B2B tech, typically SaaS companies, but I've worked with a plethora of different types and sizes and industries and companies. I started my career, I spent a long time in nonprofit, as a matter of fact, then
Mm-hmm.
did a brief stint in B2C, and then kind of found a home in B2B. And I've worked with companies from under $1 million in revenue to over 5 billion in revenue, led teams in size from 2 to 12 people, managed budgets from a very scrappy 10,000 a year to over 3 million, and yeah, just seen a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure. Quite the difference from 10K to 3 million. So
Yeah.
curious to learn more about your experiences. But just so we start this off, we have 30 minutes here and a lot to cover. I would love for you to tell us a bit about what you see now within marketing in terms of use cases for AI. Like, what are people leveraging AI for exactly? When it comes to content and emails and campaigns, and what do you personally found the most exciting ones to be?
Yeah, so for me, I think that we're doing a few different things, right? We're doing kind of productivity hacks, using AI to help us with our emails, our to streamline our inboxes. We're using it for, kind of top level content creation, using it to help, create email messages and create copy. But, the thing that I am really excited about with Gen AI is how can we use it for deepening our knowledge of and relationship to our audiences.
Mm-hmm.
When I mentioned that I had started my career in nonprofit, I spent about 10 years really doing segmentation analysis, doing kind of demographic segmentation, behavioral segmentations. So, this idea of just how do we take these amorphous audiences and segment them down into micro segments that make sense is something that, is always a cornerstone of what I work with.
Mm.
So I'm really excited about how we can use Gen AI for that. I heard about this Forbes study that said 24% of businesses are using Gen AI for audience segmentation. Now, I don't know what businesses they were profiling. It's just kind of a general statement. But when you looked at the other things that businesses were using AI for, operations, customer success, the 24% that were using it for audience segmentation, that was kind of the smallest chunk.
Mm.
And I heard about another McKinsey study that basically said that using AI in sales and marketing could add 1.4 to 2.6 trillion dollars in added business value, and
Wow.
that's trillion with a T. And part of using AI in sales and marketing, personalization is a big cornerstone of that.
Mhm.
So for me, what that means is, if I just kind of paint the picture and think about some of the things and some of the projects that I've been working on, you can process data quickly, right? So you can upload files and files about your customers and their behavior and their data points, upload that data, process that data quickly, identify patterns, and create these micro segments, right? So that's kind of the first thing, is being able to create those micro segments based upon all this data that you have. Um,
Mhm.
I just did this one where I uploaded some data into the data analytics in ChatGPT 4, and said, hey, I need you to look at this data and tell me what the segmentations are, right? And then I didn't suggest. I said, if you look at the field column names And if you need information or you need me to explain those field column names, then let me know. But otherwise, look at this data and break it out into segments. So I
Mhm.
broke it into segments and I said, okay, great. Now, if I upload another list of non-customers with the same or similar data points, could you do a comparison and tell me which of those prospective customers resemble those same customer segment buckets? So that's just, that's one thing, right? And then if you think about, okay, now what do I do with that? Think about uh, personalized content at scale, right? Now, if you've got these segments, now let me create content that's going to speak directly to those segments based upon their characteristics, their touch points and what have you.
Mhm.
And that's where I think the real power is, because I think that too many times we are doing things that are just kind of homogenous. We may be doing a little bit of segmentation, maybe based upon first or last touch attribution, or maybe some content consumption. But we have so much, we can get so much deeper and richer with doing like true personalization. That's really saying, okay, I know who you are. I understand who you are. So I think that's like where the real power is. Um, and then when Sora comes out, once they get
Yeah.
all with that, because you imagine just being able to create personalized videos, and so I think that that's where the true power is of everything that I've been seeing so far. I think we've gotten past the initial fascination with it, and we've gotten past, hey, create an email for me, wow, great, I didn't have to create that email, or write a blog post for me and I'll just kind of edit it. This,
Mhm.
I think, is the next part, the personalization and being able to create personalized content at scale.
I fully agree. I mean, I feel like at the beginning it was mostly about SEO, like how do we use it to rank up, on Google, and to just not spend too much time, to your point, on research. But the fact that we can frog leap the process of finding our ICP and being able to, do mass outreach in a personalized way is so important. But what I'm wondering, like 5 years from now, when more and more people know how to use these tools and there is less skills gap, how do you think things will be? Because if everyone does, again, those personalized videos the same way at the beginning, everyone sent emails with "Hey, first name," which was back then huge, right? Like, how
Right.
will the world be when everyone can send a personalized Sora email? Like, do you think at all about that? Like, what is the future of marketing overall?
Yeah, and we can look at that in terms of marketing in general, or like, B2C, B2B marketing. We know that B2B marketing is generally behind B2C marketing.
Mm-hmm.
So I really would love to see what's happening in B2C marketing, like, how those marketers are using Gen AI and personalization. But I think that, overall, we have an opportunity to send and create content that's personalized, not even just to segments, but to segments of one. I'm dating myself now. I'm going to talk about a movement that was maybe 15 years ago, maybe more. Um, Peppers and Rogers, they were talking about one-to-one marketing and how do we get to these micro segments of one where we are speaking to each customer as if they're their own marketing segment. And it was a good idea at the time, but we didn't have the technology to fulfill that. We didn't have the ability to really kind of operationalize and scale that. And I think that, what we have now in technology combined with the things that we're going to be able to do with Gen AI is going to help us get to that point. One of the things that we are missing, another thing we're missing in B2B marketing is we're not creating, few of us are creating brand fanatics, right? B2C marketing gets branding, and B2B
Mm-hmm.
marketing, we're still talking about, should we do brand versus demand? What's the ROI on brand? Nonsense like that. And what we need to be able to do is we need to get over that and realize that we have got to forge those emotional connections with our customer base. And how do we do that? Showing that I know you, showing that I know who you are, what you're about. I use this example frequently. There was an agency, I forgot the name of the agency. I think it was Directive, I'm not quite sure, but they had these ads, very simple black and white text ads on LinkedIn, and it said, it's hard out here for a CMO. And I was like, oh my gosh, I just want to work with you just for that for that ad alone, right? And those are the kinds of things people are going to remember. If you connect with them, they're going to remember you. What's the
Mhm.
stat now? Only 3 to 5% of your target audience is ever in market at a certain time, right? But that
And
doesn't mean
that's
that,
a lot.
yeah, right. It may even be smaller than that.
Yeah.
But we need to be doing things that allow us to be part of that considered set when people are in market. And it's not
Hmm.
necessarily a features functionality messaging.
Hmm.
It's, do I get you? Do I get
Exactly.
who you are? Right. So, and I think we need to get to that.
Yeah, what I've noticed is like the skills also that consist of a good marketer have evolved. And maybe it was more like just about creativity in the past, and then it became more about tools, like starting with CRM, etc. But now it's truly about like who has that consumer empathy, who can really feel what the customer's pain points are, and even unleash and unearth the ones that they don't even know they have. And
Nice.
it's a very hard thing to do consistently, because you have to, it's like, in my head, it's like a designer of like a fashion brand, like how many bags can you design, right? Differently, but still a good quality, and you have to do it again and again and again. And then there's always that moment where the designer is like, you know what, I'm not just feeling creative today, but the business leader is like, I don't care, you have to find that creativity in you because we have to
Right.
sell. And there's just so much tension. And I know you like to talk about the connection between marketing and sales, which is now more prevalent than ever. And it's becoming, yeah, more complex. But I'm glad to hear that you're leveraging, AI on a day to day for small things to become more productive. And I'm wondering, on the receiving end, if you've seen anyone else maybe market you as a client. Like, have you seen any successful campaigns that maybe you opened an email, or you saw like the one you mentioned on LinkedIn, that you stopped and you're like, that person had it right?
I see so few evidence, so little evidence of that. I see so few examples of that. And that's why when I do see something like that, it just sticks out and it stays with me. And even though I didn't have an opportunity to work with that agency at that point, when I do need an agency, I'm going to look them up because I remembered that. Um, but yeah, I see so few examples of that, and I get like a ton of emails a day, and it still astounds me how the cold emails and the cold outreaches on LinkedIn are still following the same script. Hey, Deidre, I bet you could use some help in your lead gen. We are da 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 da. We've done da 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 da, and we do right. Where am I in that? Just because you use my first name, that's not personalization. I've stopped reading. I'm done. I'm bored. Right. So no. And I'm just astonished that we continue to have,
Hmm.
that's still the thing. That's still kind of the playbook.
Yeah. And on the other hand, what's crazy is like you get an email like or something that you think it's different, but then in a week everybody's doing it. So it's just like those trends. Like I've seen a lot when you don't respond. They're like, hey, you haven't opened my email, so I wrote you a poem or like a song. I'm like, yeah, right. That was you think? Someone else had the same idea, and now you're following it thinking that you're making a difference. So, and by the way, for whoever's listening, feel free to give us any questions you have, and we'll get to them in a second. But I'm curious, like, what's your advice then for someone that is trying to differentiate themselves and doesn't know how to maybe upskill? And I'll break it down into two categories. Like maybe someone who's just starting their marketing career, like an entry level, middle level person, and someone who's already like a director, a CMO, and they have different perspectives. Like what would you tell them to help them become, top marketers?
I think that there needs to be balance, right? Because maybe the seasoned marketer is not so apt to use these tools or to use them on a regular basis. So they need to go a little bit more over to that side and start to explore more use cases for how they can bring Gen AI in. And
Mm-hmm.
then for the ones that's just starting out, don't develop an over reliance on that, because one of the things that's interesting is that I think that things are cyclical, and the more things change, the more they stay the same. one of the continued outgrowths or outcomes of the pandemic is that people are wanting more personal interaction. We see a rise in person interactions. We see now this rise in experiential, the focus on
Mhm.
experiential interactions, and people are going to want to continue that until the next thing happens that reverses that trend. But for now, I think for the foreseeable future, so for people who are just starting out, don't develop an over reliance on the tools. You still need to be able to speak to a person as a person. You still need to inject empathy. You still need to be able to inject that human connection. So one has to maybe come over to the side a little bit, and one has to like not rely on that so much.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And when you started your career, like, what do you think were the pivotal moments where you acquired those skills? Like in the job, like, did you have any mentors? Did you like seek workshops and things like that outside of work? How did you really learn how to differentiate from, the textbook ideas?
Um, that's an interesting question. I asked a lot of questions. Um, the people that I kind of gravitated towards were people that I could learn from.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I always sought to be helpful. So like even a few companies ago, when I really started to get that alliance, the necessity of that alliance between sales and marketing. So I sought help and I tried to be helpful, and I just like to learn. I like to learn. I like to ask questions, and I was always from the excuse me, still getting over this cold.
No worries.
I was always from the perspective of the customer. So I was
Mm-hmm.
always looking at things from the customer perspective of like, okay, if I'm a customer, is this how I want to be spoken to? Is this what they need? Are we saying the right things? Are we speaking from an inside out or an outside in perspective? Inside out perspective is like you're saying what you want to say as opposed to what the person needs to hear. So
Mm-hmm.
I was always looking at things from that perspective, and I think that just helps to drive. That's just my POV, and I just kind of bring that into everything.
Yeah, I mean, I've read recently, nowadays it takes like 17 touches for someone to really connect with you. Still, you might just hear a no, right? But for them to react in one way or another, which could include, LinkedIn ads, emails, events, all sorts of different touches. And that's where I think, to your point earlier, segmentation is truly important. But what I see a lot of now with AI is also this idea of signal-based marketing and signal-based outreach, where you're following that user journey, that client journey, and you're starting to see, for instance, start interacting with competitors or talking to your partners. Like, how will you get them in the fastest way possible so you don't have to do those 17 touches? So I'm wondering, in your opinion and with your experience, what have you seen the strongest signals to be nowadays? What are these two, three factors maybe that are signaling purchasing behavior, potential interest from the user, potential client side?
I think that's a fascinating question. And I think, as a matter of fact, when you and I first met, we were talking about something similar, right? Because there are there's intent signals and there's signals that people are leaving that we're just not picking up on. So
Mm,
for instance, one of the and this is what you and I were talking about. I was looking at how do I was trying to create a proposal for a membership organization, and I started thinking about, what's the value prop of this membership organization, right? And the value prop is networking and access to education. And
mm-hmm,
started thinking, okay, well, who needs to network, right? Who really needs networking capabilities or access to be able to network? Um, okay, how about people who have had a gap, who have been in transition for about 6 months, right? Networking could be a good way for them to help insulate from that happening again. Okay, who else? I started looking at people who had girl dad in their titles on LinkedIn. So if you take a profile of a person that identifies himself as a girl dad, right? Because that's a sense of pride, and it's something that they are showcasing about themselves to the world, nothing to do with their profession or their title. and also that may have had like a 6 month gap, that person could be ripe for joining a networking organization because they want to have insularity against being out of work again for 6 months. So
Mm-hmm.
I think when I think about intent signals, I think about thinking about it in a creative way. Really, again, getting yourself into the mind of your target audience, what they need, what you have to offer, and how those two, how those two coincide. Because everybody, your competitors are going to be using, have they searched for your type of platform. Um, they're going to follow their champions as they move from job to job and, looking at the press releases. Everyone's going to do that. How
Right.
can you be different? And how can you
Mhm.
think about it again from that customer's perspective and really get to know them and who they are?
Yeah, it's fascinating because, as technology evolves and AI is becoming smarter and smarter, it finds ways to create differentiations, and like it will pick up different things that sound more humane. So I'm very curious to see, the ethics around this too, because let's say it picks up the fact that you wrote a book and now my subject line becomes something about your book that you truly care about, therefore you're more likely to open that email. What if I haven't read your book? Like it is fake, because it's trying to create this connection where there might not be any, but the other person doesn't know that and doesn't know if it has been sent from AI or not. So, I mean, we're not going to solve this whole ethics and debate
Right,
issue today.
right.
And I'm actually pro AI for many reasons, which is why I started decades ago, but it's always something to ponder. And I saw like Meta now will start saying what's generated by AI and what is not. But if we take a step back and think of startups, and you've worked with those limited budgets too, when you really don't even have a full-time person to run your marketing and you depend so much on ChatGPT or maybe tools like Jasper to create it in different formats and just have a brand presence, which is more and more important. Like, how can startups and maybe even like fractional people that are running their own businesses be less reliant on ChatGPT and find ways to still have a brand presence? Like, what's your advice on a way to do that in a budget, yet not sound like a robot? I guess that's a million-dollar
That's,
question, but
yeah,
you
I
can give
think
us some ideas.
I think that's an interesting question. And Lisa Adams, she's on LinkedIn, and I sat in on just a phenomenal presentation that she gave a couple of months ago about what's possible with AI, and she was looking at it from a product marketing perspective. But
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that she talked about, which I thought was super interesting, was behavioral shifts and how those behavioral shifts are going to be impacted by the use of Gen AI. So one of the things she talked about is exactly that, about the brand Gen I, what she called it, brand Gen I realization. I'm going to totally botch that, but it's basically, if I'm just remembering what she said correctly, it's basically when someone's searching for you, is Gen AI going to come up with who it thinks your brand is versus how you are presenting the brand? And how do you account for that, right? How do you develop strategies and make sure that what you're saying about your brand or what's coming up about your brand is important? And I think that's a good topic. I don't have a solution for it right now other than to think that this goes into you being very intentional about the copy that you're creating, about the messaging that you're putting out there, about the value prop. We have so many things in B2B marketing that is this very just routine jargon,
Mm,
right? And if that's all you're putting out as jargon, then when Gen AI is looking for information about your brand, it's going to pull up jargon. Versus if you're putting stuff out there that's about human, connection and speaking more in a business to human language, then it'll have that as ingredients to pick up on. So
mm-hmm.
I think it's a fascinating topic. But Lisa Adams, yeah, I think she just got some phenomenal information about market shifts and behavior shifts and
Yeah,
what
I'm
that
very
means.
curious about that. I'll have a look. Another shift that I have discussed a lot with people is more and more, exactly to your point, with this kind of more standardized content, there is a need that the customers want to see who's behind the brand. They want to see the people, they want to see the founders if we're talking about a startup. And that is hard to imitate anyway. Like, yeah, sure, you can clone yourself and make a fake video, but it's not going to have the same impact. So you're kind of forced in a way to continuously find, creative ways and more authentic ways. And that's the battle now. It's like, how do we do that at scale? And how do you even, back to the startup world, leave that like founder marketing and go to more product marketing? So I feel like every stage of company has different challenges when it comes
Yeah.
to brand and marketing, of course. But it's interesting to see, like, on the larger side, like, I know, like, when people go to Unleash, I was discussing that earlier, which is more of for like corporate. They all complain about, procurement. So it's like you might have the best idea, but you're stuck in a company where they won't even let you try that campaign. So it's just, it never ends, and we're always
Yeah.
operating with limitations. But that's why, to me, it's all about soft skills. It's like, how can you influence, persuade, communicate with other teams to make it happen and stand out? Because we're all fighting for attention of people, no matter what you sell. Like, your competition is everyone, in the sense that, they are also competing for attention. So it's becoming very hard, but it's also super interesting, I think. And the role of, again, a marketer is evolving. So I'm wondering, like, since the day you started, like when you saw like maybe job descriptions out there, have the requirements also changed? Like, did you get asked different questions in the past, let's say in an interview, versus what you might be asked today?
Um, I think that the types of questions that I'm asked in interviews has varied based upon like the level. So, for
Mhm.
instance, when I was interviewing for VP of marketing position, that was going to be very different in terms of questions that I was being asked when I was, getting a marketing manager job, right? So one is going to be more strategic, and one, more focused on your philosophy and your POV versus kind of your tactical execution skills.
Mhm.
I've actually only seen maybe a couple of JDs in recent times that actually mentions Gen AI by name. Um, so I don't know if that's, a good thing or a bad thing, but I think that it'll continue to evolve. I mean, prompt engineering is supposed to be like a thing now, right?
Mhm.
That's like a specialty. Um, but I think the most important thing is that, are you able to connect with humans? Basically, are you able to figure out how to take the tools that we have at our disposal, the data, the technology, the people, the processes, and create something that's going to create a fan base? I did this little chart on LinkedIn a little while ago that was talking about product, the evolution from product to brand to movement, right? And like
Mm,
the number of
yeah,
times of your product is mentioned if you're doing it in each of those. So of course, if you're doing product marketing, your product is mentioned a lot, right? And then you get to brand, it's not mentioned as much, right? Because Coke doesn't talk about how much sugar is in it, right? It's all about family and fun and good times. And then you
right.
get the movement, and I cite Drift a lot. One of my favorite companies, Drift and HubSpot. They never talked about the product. It was about, let me get you to think differently. Let me get you to think about treating people like people, not leads. That's the Drift and HubSpot inbound marketing. They didn't talk about the platform. So,
Mm.
I think that we need to take that kind of template into trying to connect with humans. Let's connect with humans, and let's stop all this features functionality gibberish.
Yeah, no, you nailed it.
Oh man,
That's
sorry about that.
No, no, I loved it. I loved it. And it brought me back like to a class in high school where we were watching ads and analyzing them, and like Coca-Cola was one of them. And I was like, yeah, wow. And they became so huge by having a Santa Claus, and and I'm like, yeah, because that's what people want. They want to dream and they want to feel like family vibes, and
Right.
that's exactly why they made
Well,
it.
feel good. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so before we go, tell us where people can find you. They want to talk to you before Dextagon, and yeah, tell us maybe how they can connect with you.
Yeah, I'm really excited about Dexco, by the way. So when we have that roundtable on April 30th, I'm really excited about that. But otherwise, I'm on LinkedIn. I spend an inordinate amount of time on. That's the
Yeah.
best way because my email inbox is it's where messages go to die. So yeah, LinkedIn is the best place to reach me.
Yeah, unless someone has a very creative subject line for you, they shouldn't even try there.
Right, and I'll give you a tip. I'm a huge Puddle of Mud fan, so
Oh, there you
use
go.
that.
Well, that was wonderful, Deidre. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us and looking forward to seeing you end of month.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me. I
Thank
appreciate it.
you. Take care. Bye bye.